What is going on, everyone? Welcome back. Happy Mother's Day, and welcome back to the Coast to Coast podcast. It's just Carson and I, fresh off this Game 7 from the Celtics and Sixers. An absolute doozy of a game. Chol, how we doing? Thoughts?
Fantastic. Happy Mother's Day. Wow. I mean, what? I mean, we have to start off with Tatum. I mean, he's been so inconsistent and so I mean, he's been really bad. He's been really bad for stretches and to have game
Hmm.
six's fourth quarter and to have this, I mean, now it's like we just had Curry drop 50. Now he holds the record for most points in a game seven with 50. I think he finished with 51, right?
Yeah, 51.
51, just incredible, incredible stuff. And now this game just has me feeling probably the best I've ever felt as for Boston as a contender this year. I mean, this was really impressive. Like, come back from down 3-2, 50 points. Jaylen Brown was great. Brogdon was great. Really, I feel like really everybody, for the most part, played really, really solid to, kind of fall behind their guy. Tatum was just very impressive.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend. He's a Celtics fan. I was just watching the game with them, and I was like y'all were really concerning when you were only won 4-2 against the Hawks, a team that was like no one had any business losing any games to. It should have been a sweep from the start, and like you go 4-2 against them. Like I was nervous going into this series, and Joel Embiid. A lot of questions about this Philly roster. I really just kind of want to zone in on. We know this game was, an absolute from the start. From the third quarter on, it was kind of over. I mean, Embiid 5 for 18 and 15 points in an elimination game as an MVP who averaged 33 and 10 last year. I mean, there's a lot of things going into Philly's offseason. Do you think that Doc is out?
Yes, I mean, especially because, we're going to talk about them later. I mean, coaches getting fired left and right. There's a ton of great candidates out there if they're looking to go elsewhere from Doc. I mean, Doc, Harden, like they are who they are. I mean, like Doc Rivers, like Philly really should have known what they were getting with him, someone that was going to improve, make them look better in the regular season. But in the playoffs, I mean, it's going to be the same old, same old. I mean, Doc won in 2008, but since then it's been playoff collapse after playoff collapse, with the Clippers, um, now with the Sixers. I'm missing one other team in the middle.
Uh,
I
Sixers,
guess no, it was just Sixers,
because we went
Clippers.
from Boston to the Clippers and then straight to the Sixers after he was fired. Yeah.
Yeah, but besides the point, just constant, constant collapses from him. And yeah, I mean, they could look to Monty, but they do have to look somewhere else.
Yeah, like you said, we'll get into that in a minute. There's a lot of hot coaching candidates. And then James Harden. There's been this circulation since like maybe the All-Star break that a move back to Houston would be in play. Now with Ime Udoka, more of a focus there, with Steven Silas on the way out. Do you think that James Harden thinks like, hey, like I gave Philly what I could. We had our duo and like I'm not a playoff performer at this point. Like, neither is Embiid. Like, it's time for me to get my way back and go back to where I was great. You think there's a real good chance now, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I would definitely give it a solid chance just because I feel like there's definitely been like multiple stories come out within, the course of the season that, from, real credible reporters that's like okay, like he really is thinking about this. And I feel like it's just really tough for the Sixers because like just having James Harden walk in free agency is just really, really tough regardless of this terrible outcome just because like you're losing out on that asset, like you're not getting anything back for Harden. And so I feel like if they really want to try and maximize it, you maybe re-sign him and then look to trade. But with James Harden, there's only he's so specific as a player. There's only so many teams really that like have the capital that would want to go for this guy.
Yeah, he's already 33. He turns 34 at the start of next season. Yeah, he's getting up there, and you can't imagine like can Philly really get much better? Is like kind of my next question. Like Harris is kind of a contract that I think they will be haunted by forever, given the fact that
Yep.
they've used it in other ways. And Tyrese Maxey's truly the only guy on that roster that I think can get much better. I think Embiid's hit a ceiling. A 30 and 10 guy that averages 4 assists.
Yeah, he's there. Like Embiid is who he is. Yeah.
I mean, Do you think there's any much better that Philly can get? Like they'd have to catch amazing breaks if they were going to make another run. So
Yeah, that's the scary thing. Yeah, Harden just walks. Let's say Harden goes to Houston. Yeah, you're left with Maxey as your second best player, and I know we both really like Maxey. He's so fast, he's electric, but kind of similar to Harden, where it's like doesn't really offer much on the defensive end, and you would need just like an enormous like asking a lot for him to jump up, and then Harris would be your third best player, and yeah, who knows what you're even getting back for Harris because Harris, solid player, whatever, but that contract just makes it so hard to move a guy like that and get real pieces like people really going to want to give up like real tangible assets for this guy who there's a lot of games where it's like, where is he? Like,
hmm
only 6 points, 8 points, 12 points. Like,
he's just a guy that can, he's a fourth option. He's not nothing much better than that. I think we're at the point where a year from now we're going to be looking at Embiid trade scenarios. I think that's legitimately where we might be because
how many
like
years does he have left on his contract?
I can check that. Let's see, John. He's on a 4 year, $210 million contract, and it expires in 20. Oh, so he was on the first. He's going to the first year of his max contract.
Mm.
But I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that hasn't really stopped players before. I mean, Embiid, he could push the red button whenever he wants.
because like, do they really have an assets to go get a guy like what? Like Maxi would have to be in any deal that they went after a star. I mean, like they won the Nets trade, but like the end of the day, if Harden walks, like what's the point?
What did you really? Yeah,
What did you really walk away with? They could have had De'Aaron Fox. Crazy to think about that. That was an
yeah.
option on the table. And I mean, look where he was this year. So,
hmm
and then let's look at Boston real quick. I mean, we got a rematch of the bubble conference finals with the Lakers and the Nuggets, in a rematch, and obviously the trilogy of Boston versus Miami. How badly does Boston need this? I feel like, especially with this stuff that's been talking about, two guys that can make $300+ million deals due to their NBA all NBA selections in Tatum and Brown. How badly do they need to capitalize on this time right now in Boston?
Oh, badly, 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 badly. I mean, this is, the last, few years, there's been a championship window for the Celtics. And last year, they get there, and they almost really snatched one. And I feel like, they might have been like a year early or so. But like, this is exactly what you envision when you draft Brown, when you draft Tatum, that 5, 6, 7 years down the line, they're competing for championships, and we are here. And I feel like Boston, they have to capitalize and get at least one from this duo because yeah, there's going to be a lot of question marks, and who knows, maybe it'll be happily ever after, and they win it, and they decide like these guys got us a championship. We're not separating them at all. Give them the bag. But then from there, it just makes it much harder to construct a roster that
Mm.
can be competitive. You have to be much smarter when you don't have as much money, but then if you lose to Miami, lose in the finals, like then all of a sudden Brown may walk. He might get a max from Atlanta or wherever it may be, and then it's like you're, you're nowhere near the same contender. And this is huge, especially because the Heat have given them problems, but they have so much more of a talented roster.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, like from Boston's perspective, they got White, they got Smart, and they also the two Jalen's. I mean, Jason and Jalen. Robert Williams, Al Horford. Malcolm Brogdon. They got a lot of guys that can make a lot of money. Like at the end of the day, like do they want to keep the duo or do they think let's go for more of a well-rounded roster around Tatum? Because I think Tatum's not going to be the odd guy out. It's clearly obvious. I mean, like as good as Brown has been this year, and at times better than Tatum, it's going to be Tatum's going to be the guy they side with. So I mean, if you're a guy that gives you 51 points in a closeout game 7, I mean, can't go wrong with that. So, um,
Exactly.
and then let's look into this Heat Celtics series. I mean, you mentioned it. I think that's what your idea is that Celtics do have the upper hand in this matchup. More playoff. A lot of experience on that team as well, and there's a lot of guys. Al Horford's been doing it for a while. Tatum and Brown have both like they've been to the NBA Finals last year, and they've also been to their fair share of conference finals as well. I mean, would you say they're the favorite, clear favorite in this series?
Yeah, I wouldn't say clear. I definitely see them as the favorite, but I feel like with this series, you have to account for a couple things that work in the Heat's favor. One is just like the Celtics. We've seen it time and time again. They will blow a game or two in a series. You look at game five against the Hawks, they should have won that at home and they let that linger on. Game one without Embiid, that was a really tough loss. The game four overtime game, that was one they easily could have stolen at multiple different points during that game. And you have to assume there's gonna be one, maybe two of those in this series, and also just that comes down to the coaching because the Heat are going to have such a massive coaching advantage in this
Oh
series when
yeah.
it comes to Spo. I mean, he's arguably the best coach in the league versus Missoula, who Missoula's fine, but there's obvious signs of. I mean, he's 34 years old. Al Horford's older than him, so I feel like I would say the Celtics in 6 or 7, but there's going to be times when it's definitely going to look scary because the Heat, they've played them well over the course and the coaching. And then Jimmy, too. I mean, you have to account for Jimmy just turning into Michael Jordan for, a few quarters in
Mhm.
this series.
Yeah, I mean, so then let's get into that. What's your prediction for this series? I mean, like I said, Jimmy will probably at times end of the series will probably have been the best player on the court for them for both teams. But like, what are your thoughts? Who's winning this?
I'm going to go with the Celtics in 6. I'm going to go, yeah, in
That,
6.
that's my
It's six
prediction
or
as
seven, but
well.
I'll go with 6.
I'll say six as well. I think seven's a little just hopeful. Everyone would love it to go seven, but I think they make it in six. I think this next series probably has a chance of going longer. Which good transition. Lakers and Nuggets. I mean, heartbreak for us. I mean, it is what it
I
is.
know.
We had a run. It was one. It's arguably the greatest run in all of professional sports.
We're
Where
gonna need a whole nother pod to
yeah,
discuss
yeah.
the Warriors offseason. That's a whole nother. I don't even want to get into
Yeah,
that right now.
we'll get that another time. But I mean, honestly, Game Six, Clay does not exist. Braun and company close out. They're headed off to place the Nuggets, a team that they beat in the bubble to the lead to their first LeBron's championship in LA. Um, who is the favorite in this series? I feel like this is a lot less clear than the last one.
Definitely. Compared to the bubble, I would definitely say the Nuggets. I would lean slightly to the Nuggets just because the home court. It's obvious. I mean, they haven't even lost a game at home yet. Um, it's going to be really tough for LeBron and AD. Obviously, I'm sure that it's those two guys are generational, but that's a tough place to play for them. LeBron is 38, AD, uh, you know, not the best track record of staying healthy. Denver's just a really hard place to play with the altitude, and I think Jokic is just AD. He's such a great defensive player that I think one on one he's gonna make it tough for Jokic scoring. But what Jokic does with his passing and just how he gets everybody moving, if the Nuggets don't stay stagnant, which they kind of did a little bit slightly in the Sun series, and they keep the ball moving through Jokic, lots of cuts. The Lakers, that's a tough matchup for them because they like to really slow things down, be meticulous, and you get them out in transition or you're moving a lot. I feel like that's a great way to go at them, and I think the Nuggets really match up well. But the Lakers, they have that experience. They have that experience.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, Jokic is going to be as motivated as ever, to win this. I would say that the Nuggets should be the favorites in this series. I mean, they got so many guys contributing at like such a great level. I mean, shout out Bruce Brown, University of Miami alum. We have a guy playing in the finals regardless of what happens. He's been fantastic for them. Isn't much of a shooter, but he's learned to play his role. He hits shots when he needs to, and he's an all-around guy for that team. I'm so happy to see his success, from Brooklyn moving over to the Nuggets. But I would say, yeah, the Nuggets. I mean, no, I don't think even AD can slow down Nikola Jokic, and I think that's just the
He's just
reality.
playing at an insane level right now. And I want to talk about, you mentioned the depth. I feel like one thing that was a really good advantage for the Lakers against us was just really their depth. Like they had more malleability than us because like
Uh-huh.
the Warriors, it's like if you're not getting anything from Clay or Poole, where's the offense really coming from besides Steph? You're not expecting much scoring from GP2, JaMychal Green. moody. Whereas the Lakers, it's like you see them, they'll get a Rui game where he drops 20, or D'Lo will, have the game where he starts
Yeah.
off like 8 for 10, or the fucking Lonnie Walker game.
Yeah.
Like what? Like we didn't have any kind of Lonnie Walker game like that for any of our role guys. And the Nuggets, like they have that. They have the depth to match. They have, obviously you mentioned Bruce Brown, just a great, great role player. KCP is going to have a big game here. Jeff Green,
And
he's as old as LeBron, but he's going to come in. He's going to hit like three threes in a game, and I like that aspect about them as well.
no, yeah, I would definitely say the Nuggets. And then kind of transitioning to my next point, I mean, how badly does Jokic need this? I mean, like, especially in the battle between who's the best big in the league, and Embiid's out now, and Jokic should have be should possibly been three straight MVPs to his name, heads into a conference finals, doesn't have the bubble excuse where they don't have a home court advantage anymore. They do have that. They're the upper seed. How badly does he need this for his legacy, especially to not go down as, a Charles Barkley type that, could never really, finally get over the hump.
Yeah, badly. I mean, obviously Jokic is still relatively young. He's gonna I'm sure he's gonna be competing for much longer. But as of right now, I mean, like you talked about, like it's all set up for him and the Nuggets. Like there's no asterisks. He has all his guys. No injuries so far. Knock on wood. He has everything but like the championship really. And I feel like if he gets this one, I feel like him and Tatum are in very similar boats because you look at the Lakers, like LeBron and AD, they got one together.
Yeah,
Jimmy, just the fact that Jimmy's here is enough, right? Like there's not really
exactly.
much else. Yeah, there's not really much else he can do, the eight seed. But with Tatum and Jokic, like they have been at the precipice now for a few years. Like this is the last crown jewel for them. And yeah, especially Jokic, two MVPs. Like this is his time for sure. And he could really put himself in a short list of guys, centers that have, you know, won championships as the best guy.
Now, he would, like, outside of Shaq, probably from 2000 to 2000 to present day, he would be, outside of Shaq, the best big man we've seen. In the
Yeah, and,
21st
and
century.
Duncan, you want to throw Duncan in there too?
Yeah, well, oh yeah, Duncan. So, but like the pure center,
Yeah, sure, sure.
because Duncan had a, but yeah, Duncan probably. I mean, nowadays Duncan would be a center, but he's top
Yeah, I
three
would.
big man of the
Yeah,
last. I don't care what Dwight did. Jokic just won two MVPs at that position. Yeah, it's him, Shaq, and Tim Duncan in the 2000s up Mount Rushmore.
yeah, I totally
And then
agree.
serious prediction. I mean, who's winning this? I mean, bubble rematch. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people that think the Lakers just walk away with this because the NBA wants them to. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that I mean, Lakers Celtics would be insane, and the NBA would love that. But I'm gonna go with the Nuggets. I'm gonna say I'm leaning towards six. I wouldn't be surprised about seven, but because you're gonna get. I'll go with six. I'll go with six.
I'll play devil's advocate. I'll say Lakers in seven. I think
Fair enough.
it's the one game the Nuggets will lose at home. It'll be that, but because everyone's pushing for that. I want the Nuggets to win personally, but I have
I
a
do
feeling
too.
that
I'm rooting for Jokic, and obviously because like they beat the Warriors, the Lakers, but
yeah,
I'm rooting for Jokic to get this for the legacy for sure. And now
yeah.
that Embiid's out, Embiid and Harden are out, yeah, he's easily, I talk about Tatum, he's up there too, but like he's at the top of the list of like, needs it the most for sure.
I mean, no one wants to see like Nuggets Heat, like which is unfortunate because like that would be kind of like an interesting one to see how that goes. They want Boston or LA in it one way or another. Whether
Yeah,
it's both or one, like they need one of those big markets. Um, I mean, that'd
totally.
be great for Denver. I mean, you win a Stanley Cup, and then the next year your NBA team wins a NBA Finals. Like that'd be great for that city.
Yeah,
And who knows
yeah.
about they got Sean Payton now. It might be I might be talking a little bit too forward. Who knows? Who knows? That's a whole nother thing.
Sean Payton's gonna add a few more wins to them for sure.
You will. But speaking about coaches, Monty Williams gets the sack from the Phoenix Suns. New owner. He's showed he's not afraid to make moves. He went out and got KD like a couple weeks into him owning the team, and Monty's the scapegoat here. Whether it be DeAndre Ayton's fault or Chris Paul's fault. Griffin and I are going to be doing an NBA draft lottery stream, so he wants to have a lot of monologue about the Monty Williams situation there. But let's just dive into it real quick. I mean, like, what are your thoughts? Do you think it was the right move?
I don't think so. I just think, it's the coach, it's always going to really go to them first, as the scapegoat. I really don't think it was his fault. I think he's still a really good coach. I feel like the biggest thing to blame, it's obviously it's not forgetting KD, but the KD trade as a whole, losing that depth. I mean, they just didn't have the personnel. I feel like it's very similar to Frank Vogel getting fired from the Lakers. And, obviously Darvin Ham's been really good, so it worked out for them. But Frank Vogel, he got fired and blamed for the Lakers' issues when he's a defensive coach and their roster was, inept at playing defense. They didn't have the personnel for that, for what they want to do. Same with the Suns. I mean, they're three through, when you lose CP3, Aiton's, playing himself off the court, and you look at everybody else down the bench, and it did not look good at all. I mean, Shamit came, he had a quarter, but like Ish Wainwright, Campaign,
Those are
TJ
not
Warren,
NBA
yeah,
Finals role players.
no, just the personnel wasn't there. It sucks that Monty got, scapegoated for that, and that's the real issue to me.
Yeah, I think their depth was just like, like Torrey Craig gave him like a 19-point game in the first round. And like, I don't, it was just outside of KD and Booker. I mean, Booker probably had the best, outside of Jimmy Butler, the best playoff run like so far. And I mean, him and KD
Totally.
can't do everything. KD was horrendous in the closeout game. Was not his usual self. And I think it's going to be a lot of hard things. I think at the end of the day, they have to trade CP and Aiden. I think they might need to not get a look for getting a equal or better caliber players back, but getting more of a depth idea. Kind of going towards what Boston has. With their two guys and a lot of guys around them. Obviously, probably not going to get a Robert Williams type, but you know just get a big man that's not that's just, all you need him to do is play defense and get boards. They don't need Aiton to score. I mean, he can cause some problems at times. So interesting there. I mean, who's your ideal candidate? Knowing that we have Nick Nurse, who's kind of the crown jewel, I feel like in a lot of people's eyes in this class. Doc Rivers will likely be sacked. Coach Budenholzer we could even see you beat them and then join them situation. Maybe even look to hire internally. I mean, what do you think the Sun should do?
Um, I don't think Doc or Bud, those are the right options. I think those would be actual regression. I would probably value Monty, over those guys just because, we've seen some real bad hiccups from
Mm.
Rivers and from Bud in the playoffs. I mean, it's not like Monty has the greatest track record either, but like I still really believe it was the personnel over him. I think Nick Nurse would be a great candidate. Um, you know, I don't know. I can't really think. I guess it would just be him, but I feel like the bottom line is that I don't know. I think it really matters who they put there as much as like how are they going to improve this
Yeah.
roster? Like who's out there for them is the big question.
I think Atkinson would be a great fit to go over there. I feel like, he was offered that Charlotte Hornets job and then backed out. I feel like that would be really beneficial, especially with his ability. You know, if they wanted to keep Aiton, like he's had good success developing young players, whether that be, helping D'Lo end up being, a trade piece for the Warriors or, even Poole. I mean, obviously the last couple of games for Poole have been horrendous, but he brought Poole that contract. A lot the reason was in his
Totally.
development from young players.
Uh,
I think that could be interesting to see. But if they want to go from a perspective of they want to, which they probably do, is want to win now. I think Nick Nurse, he won a championship, with a star guy and Kawhi on their team. So like he will command respect, I believe, in that locker room. So I think that's the ideal guy, and I think Matt Ishbia is going to have an open checkbook. He will hand the check to whatever coach he wants and say, write your number. Like, I will pay you whatever that is. I don't think that's going to be a problem. It's all going to come down to who wants to go where. And I mean, it's an attractive location. I mean, to have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, can't go wrong with that. And then
I would definitely lean towards Nurse and Atkinson for sure, um, over Rivers and Bud. Definitely, I'd rather go with those two.
now we got the Bucks, fired, Budenholzer. Interesting enough, just 2 years after winning an NBA Finals, they lose in the first round to the AFC Heat, which doesn't look bad now that they're in the conference finals, but still, you know, an MVP caliber season from Giannis, Brooke Lopez's career season at 35 years of age. Drew Holiday, another great season from him as well. They sacked. Reports are saying that Mark Jackson, former Warriors coach as we know him, current commentator, was interviewed for the position. That will be interesting as well. I mean, of course, the usual names will be out there. I mean, on top of who do you think they should go after? What are some things that you think they need to address in this offseason?
Um, they are really old. I think they really need to address the wings. I feel like that's their Achilles heel, and I feel like if you can flip Middleton, and or Lopez into like a couple wings, a couple swing guys that maybe don't hit the levels that Middleton does, that he can, but like provide depth and provide options and defensive ability. I feel like that's because you have Giannis, you have Brook in the inside in the interior, and you have Drew. He's great on whatever point guard or shooting guard. But then you look in the guys in the middle, in the swing guys who are guarding guys like Tatum, Brown, Jimmy Butler, LeBron, all the best wings. Who do they really have for that? Grayson Allen, Wesley Matthews, Joe Ingles. I mean, it's just, Pat Connaughton. It's just not really. I don't really like their options there, and I feel like getting just at the very least solid, more, better wing guys, if not like a Middleton esque player per se. I think that's where they really need to go, preferably younger, because I feel like as a whole their team is much older for sure. I will say this is definitely my ideal Nick Nurse team. I would much rather him go here than the Suns. I feel like it's crazy to me that Nick Nurse is fired. I think he would really elevate this team back to the finals if he went there because we saw what he did with Kawhi. The defensive identity would be even better, and their offense wouldn't be as clunky. Because there's time where Budenholzer just like, he gets it's unoriginal and he gets stale for sure.
I think they've been talking about the JJ Redick is receiving buzz. I think that would be a mistake, honestly, for the not only for JJ Redick, who I think is doing great with his media work, but from the fact of getting a guy who has zero head coaching experience to go coach one of the best players in the league. Like that's a hard to command a locker room. Like when you're a guy that like people could be like, oh, like I don't know, I played against you and like you weren't shit or something like that. I feel like that could be a problem. And I feel like and also Mark Jackson, I feel like being removed from coaching for that long, like it seems like he's had a lot of hesitations to go to coach, like whether it be, he didn't like the options that are out there and so on and so forth. I think this would also be a good Kenny Atkinson solution, but like you said, I think Nick Nurse does make the most sense in terms of, the kind of depth that they have, the way that Toronto was formed when they ended up making that championship, with a strong, wing slash forward and Giannis, and then the guard play of a guy like Drew Holiday. But like you said, they do need to address the wing problem. I'd love to see them go after kind of get those like Norm Powell or like even like a Herb Jones kind of guy. I mean, it'd be hard to get from a team like the Pelicans, but like in those realms, like maybe even like a Devin Vassell, from the Spurs if they're willing to part ways. I think
Those would be great options because they're all the guys you mentioned. They're younger, much younger.
And I think a lot of it's going to be determined on draft night. Where these teams land. If you know San Antonio doesn't land at number 1 or 2, it's likely that they won't get Scoot Henderson or Victor Wembanyama, and Scoot would fill in that point guard role that they're looking for. But if they're like, oh, we can get Brandon Miller, we don't need Keldon Johnson, or we don't need Devin Vassell anymore. Like that changes the whole situation. So I think a lot of moves will be made this offseason.
I think another team that they sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to say
No,
another team that they should look for that is like for sure the Nets. I mean the Nets, after all the moves they made, they're hoarding a bunch of those guys that we're talking about. Obviously Bridges is a really tough guy to get, but like you're looking at like Cam
Finney.
Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, like guys like that, I think are really viable options to try and go after for them.
Yeah, like a Finney Smith at the four, if you play Giannis at the five in some lineups, that would be great, to have that defensive versatility to move around. I think there is a lot of teams that there's like you can get pickings around this offseason that, are looking to move off, shed some weight, whether it be young teams going in a different direction or just teams that, need to make a move one way or another. I definitely agree. I mean,
Yeah, hey,
and
I totally agree with the Mark Jackson, JJ Redick points because I feel like, we kind of got this precedent set with Steve Kerr that's like, oh, like, look how great Steve Kerr ended up. He didn't have any head coaching experience, and then all of a sudden, he's leading this team. But that was just such a unique
anomaly.
situation. Yeah, exactly. He's coming in to a team that was like, already really kind of building up towards something really special. And he had so much experience in the front office before that. And JJ, you know, and also I feel like for JJ, it's bad. It works against him with how Steve Nash ended up in
Uh,
Brooklyn.
100%. No, yeah. Steve Nash's look is definitely bad because he's a guy that you think, oh, like that's a, point guard. He's like won MVPs, like super, like ran like a really fast paced offense. He understands that stuff. And then he goes and, gets canned in his second season with the Nets, halfway through, so on and so forth. I think that's because I met him in Vegas. I think that's my curse I have with people. So
You ruined it.
I
You
did
ruined
ruin
his
it.
chances.
I told him have a good season. He got canned like 30 games in. Um,
You know?
but no, I think there's a lot of teams that not only are these teams, like the Suns and Bucks gonna be looking to make moves, but teams that fell short, like the Kings are definitely gonna be making more moves this offseason. We'll get into it in our separate episode. The Warriors have a lot of stuff to deal with this offseason they could be getting into. The Knicks, after what they did, is Julius Randle still gonna be in New York? It does not seem to be
He
receptive to
better
that.
not. I think that might be over. That
Yeah.
partnership might be over.
And the Hawks, is it finally time to start, moving John Collins and all that? There's plenty of teams we could go on and on, but that's what we have for today. We got our conference finals predictions. We got the NBA lottery. Who is going to end up with Victor Wembanyama will likely
Yeah,
be.
wait, that's on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, if you want to join, we're going to be doing the live stream. We're going to be checking in, seeing who's going on because that's the golden ticket. You could go into playoff from being the worst team in the league to being in play-in or playoffs next year with that guy if he plays the way we expect him to. So
Yeah.
big stuff ahead.
Man, that's
All right.
exciting. That's really
Well,
exciting.
hey, everyone, enjoy your Mother's Day. We appreciate you guys for listening. And as always, this is Coast Coast Podcast signing out. Peace.